Welcome back to my channel Madden Backlog Series. Today's video is how fake gameplay and features are in Madden 23. Before we get too deep into this, please click the like icon, click the subscribe and notification icon so you will be informed when a new video has been posted. Here's my Madden 23 game summary as we transition during the offseason to Madden 24 promises and hype season. Content creators will be rushing out to be the first to hype these promises, but won't be the first to flat out claim EA didn't match the hype after the release of the game. Instead, they will say EA didn't quite match it, but there were still improvements. See how that's different? That EA didn't quite match it, but there were still improvements. They've been doing this now for years. So trust me, you will hear this and should have noticed this pattern by now over the years. My first subject is franchise. Now, I get this from various content creators who say their franchise demands still have not come close to being met, despite EA claiming it was going to focus on them in Madden 22 back then and didn't now in Madden 23. That pretty much sums it up. I mean, again, I don't play the franchise mode. When I first got into Madden, because of the cancellation of 2K, the franchise mode just didn't pull me in. And it seemed like there was a difference with regard to the game. And actually, it was the first time that I kind of got a hint that maybe this game involves scripts. But that's another story for another time. I have videos on that too, which I call drama cheat mode. But the franchise community has pretty much summed up that EA has failed them. Despite them claiming to focus on them, they failed them. And I would say now for 2 years straight. Next up is presentation. And I will begin with commentary is annoying and boring. The commentary still does not keep up with the flow or the rhythm of the game. Big plays or potential big plays have no emotion attached to them because it doesn't even get mentioned. You don't hear what the potential outcome could have been had a player broken that tackle, made that catch, intercepted that ball, etc. So I pretty much turned it off. The other thing is there are no referees in the game still, which means they lied to the content creators who in turn lied to us with regard to it being a memory issue. You're not going to tell me that there's still a memory issue in adding the referees to the game with the new consoles. And finally, I will say the sidelines are still boring and not part of the game, if you know what I mean. Next up is playbooks. Still, no blank playbook for custom playbooks to be created from. Some plays can't be simply deleted, and there is no rating in the rating editor to change them so that you can delete them. And the rating editor, in my opinion, is totally worthless. I'm still seeing double plays in various sets, such as dive and double slants. They're the exact same play, so why are there duplicates in a play set? I'm still seeing screwed up play art that represents either routes or defensive assignments, mainly blitzing or delayed blitzing. And you can find those in the double A gap or something of that nature, nickel defensive playbook. No sorting capability of plays in the playbook. No sorting of plays in a play set. More filters to narrow down what you want to select from are needed. Personnel information should be displayed because some plays with similar names use different personnel. You can't set goal line audibles. you can't set Hail Mary audibles. You have to wait and set those before each and every game. The audible settings that you can set get screwed up once you are on the field and ready to use them. In 3 different places, you can edit audibles. They show different selections and sometimes even blank selections that you can't add to. The play call screen audible editor and the coach's audible editor settings aren't guaranteed either to stick to the settings you set them to. Can we please update this already? Next up is gameplay. This is the core of the game. And it's a lot, but I can't really go into detail because it would take about an hour to go over. But on the offensive side, offensive line blocking is still poor, whether it's pass protection or run blocking, picking up blitzes. You have some very lost offensive linemen for whatever reason, picking up somebody running through. And it doesn't matter whether they're an X Factor player or not. They said that they removed the nano blitz protection, but I think that's just more of a gimmick more so than anything to allow the console to get that instant sack more so than you. Because I see a lot of holes that the console comes straight through without any diversion from that. But when your defender is going through that big hole, direct line to the quarterback, for some reason he diverts over into somebody who's already blocking someone. They're already blocking someone, and yet he runs over there to him to be blocked. So now you have 2 defenders being blocked by 1 offensive lineman. But I can't get too far into that. Let's see. Routes are inconsistent. Last year it was the out route. This year it's the comeback route that's been screwed. It's just inconsistent with regard to how it's being run. It's run more like a outside curl, and that makes no sense. Too many console runners run like power runners that they are not. In other words, you have a scat back type of runner. He's not a power runner, but yet he's running over 2 defensive linemen. Could be 2 different defensive tackles. It could be a defensive tackle and a linebacker known for making good tackles. Console receivers rarely drop aggressive passes. Have you noticed that? Your receivers almost always drop them. You still have spinning catches where your receivers are unnecessarily stuttering or stopping on their routes as well. And that mainly happens on those flat routes. Just check it out every now and then. Run a flat route, and if you run enough of them in your playbook, you'll probably catch one. Wheel routes don't allow you to lead them more towards the sidelines, no matter how much you lead it. And I shouldn't have to go through a setting to make it lead it further, because then that's going to affect all my passes, which I don't want. Touch pass now seems to be a gamble attempt. I mean, you press and hold a button, that's a bullet. You tap that button just briefly, not for a lob, but supposedly for a touch, and it's a 50-50 chance between a bullet and a touch pass. And sometimes I feel like that's also scripted too for an interception, but that's another story. And I have new controllers, so it's not a controller issue. The spinning QB still exists in the game. That was supposed to have been fixed 2 or 3 versions ago. But I see the quarterback sometimes will do a 270-degree turn to throw the ball. And that makes no sense. The quarterback, sometimes you can't throw the ball after he's made his drop back. It seems like there's a delay. The quarterback short throws should not involve a long throwing motion. The quarterback fumbles too easily when he's running with the ball, even with the ball protection button pressed. Let's say the quarterback can still pitch almost a perfect ball out to someone when he's running and he's hit. That should not be the case. It's just too easy to do. And the QB seems to stop sprinting when trying to throw the ball away. Some throwing motions need to be finished, and that's just the way I look at it. I know there was a complaint about that, but some of the throwing motions need to be finished because they all are beginning to look like tucked throwing motions. There's no QB scramble to avoid or break sack attempts. Screens are still not right. That includes wide receiver as well as running back screens because they run out in front of the blocks. Tight end screens, for the most part, seem like a waste of time. Jailhouse break, I believe that's what they call it. That seems like a waste of time. Your players trip at the console players. They don't seem to have the same tripping under the same circumstances. Receivers pressed off their routes is extremely exaggerated. And once they bounce off the route, they're continuing to run their route. Doesn't make sense. It's just check it out sometime. Watch it. And you'll say, well, what is he doing? You need more built-in motions. With all the motions that are going on in NFL from various formations, we have very limited motion plays in the game. You should come from the slot. It should come from the wideouts. It should come from the tight ends. It should come from the running backs. There should be motions. The next playbook should have plenty of motions in there. I can't say it anymore. Let's see. Run blocking needs to block rather than wander around or basically run into the player. Because that's what they do. They'll run through a gap where they're supposed to block, and the defender's there, and they'll just kind of run in place into the player rather than block him. So that kind of kills the whole AI idea that they keep claiming this game is supposed to have. Reverses in this game, they all suck. I'm sorry, but they do. Most of the time when you run a reverse, that defensive end or whatever, no matter what his rating is, he's going to be there to stop it and stop it for a loss. So there's really nothing to it as far as that's concerned. On the defensive side, user defenders don't seem to defend aggressive catch like the console defenders do. And so thus your console receivers come down with the catch, while yours will just bobble the ball away. The defenses in the end zone, they suck as well. As far as zone or man-to-man, they just don't play well. One thing that really gets me is DBs who are selected should follow their coverage until you take control. Just like a defensive lineman. I can select a defensive lineman, and once that ball is hiked, he will go on with his assignment. But if I have a defensive back like a cornerback selected, for whatever reason, the game decides it's not going to have him cover his deep third of the field or whatever his assignment is. He just stands there. And just being selected is not taking control. It just means that you have the player selected, like when you select the defensive lineman. So they really need to fix this because too many times I see this in those scripted games to give the console a cheap score. And what I mean by that is I can be ahead and I'm always selecting that defensive lineman. Suddenly my cornerback is selected. There's a quick hike, and before I know it, there's an easy score touchdown by the console because somehow it decided that it was going to choose my cornerback to select rather than the defensive lineman that I've had the whole time. The console DBs seem to be able to track the ball with their heads turned, away from the pass. So you're trailing a receiver, but yet you can track a ball down the field underneath you, between you and the quarterback. That doesn't make any sense. Because you can see them, they will run back to the ball and hawk it down almost 10 yards downfield from the spot of the route, like an out route or a comeback route. And that just doesn't make sense. You see them sometimes turning on routes before the receiver. Now, there's a way to do that, but the way they have it happen, it's more like a script and or a forced competitive game that really isn't. It's just tossed in there just for the scores to remain within a certain range. I still do not see players having to accelerate coming off of blocks, and they should. They should have to. If a linebacker comes in and he's hit and stopped by a offensive lineman or a good blocking running back, then he should have to accelerate again because he's already stopped or slowed down. So to reach his top speed again, he has to accelerate. He can't be at the top speed. And I noticed that the console running backs can block 2 defenders, whereas yours has trouble with 1. Yours sometimes can have trouble finding 1. And I have one of the best blocking running backs in the league, and yet for some reason they have him just lost in the backfield. So, and also there's too much contact downfield. Way too much contact downfield. So again, that to me kind of kills the whole idea of AI. Now I'm going to touch on special teams real quick. I still feel the kicks are pretty much scripted with regard to blocks, and I don't like that. They need to take that script out and just do their due diligence in making the blocking concept correct, and that way you can do some work to get your blocks in. But that would also give you options in case you're familiar with a guy who always lines up on that left side ready to block. Now you have some options that you can use to make sure that that person is accounted for. They still have not fixed the suggested plays for kicks. You have kick, left, middle, and right. That's what it should be. But for some reason, you have left, left, and right, or left, right, and right. So when you pull up that punt return or kick return, that's what you see. And then you have to basically go into a pause menu and come back out in order to get it right. Can we get a real squib kick, please? Because the squib kick that we have in this game is not realistic at all. It's so old and outdated of being kicked down to a slower blocker. It makes no sense. That's not a squib kick. And the same can be said for variety on the onside kicks. Onside kicks need variety. It's the same old animation. The only difference is whether that guy's going to fumble the ball or not. And that's not going to do it. The last category is other features, which is a variety of things, such as instant replay. They need to show more with the instant replay. For instance, if there's no motion in the play, then fine. Show the instant replay from hiking the ball. If there's motion involved in a play, whether manual or built in, then they need to show the replay from the beginning. And that's not hard to do. It's very easy to do. The ratings, what does it matter if you keep manipulating them via code to be more or less than what they should be, especially when it comes to speed? I'm tired of still seeing slow defensive tackles chasing quarterbacks across the field. And they slow down once they start going up the field, but they seem to be able to catch them going across the field, and that's just crazy. I've seen defensive tackles down in a 3 or 4 point stance run over on the opposite side of the field and cover a running back who's like 90 speed. Yet this person's at the most about 70, 73 speed. And you see them run all the way across the field, and if you throw that ball, let's say whether it be a swing or a flat, it doesn't matter. That defensive tackle should not be there. You're not going to tell me that. And I see these defensive tackles who end up inheriting these built-in animations. That's a problem because now they're going to move faster than they should be moving. So those built-in animations do have flaws in them because they're all run at the same speed, regardless of the ratings. X Factor. I would say just call it a day with regard to that, because for me, they really don't mean too much. The only thing I can think of is that and momentum seem to be more of a diversion in my estimation, because I've seen some of this stuff prior to any of this being put in the game. I played the console, and then all of a sudden the quarterback is throwing plays, and you just can't stop it. The running back suddenly has just got all this power or whatever. The blitzes come in. It can read all of your blitzes and all your plays. Half of these are what you see in there for momentum and X factors. And the thing about momentum is you've got this freeze kicker. Let's be honest. How are you going to freeze the console with that same concept of showing the kick from angle? Yeah, it's going to have an effect on the gamer, but it's not going to have the same effect against the console. Remove that from the game. That just, I get that you're trying to give some type of visual or whatever, but if you're freezing a kicker, it's not about a visual. The kicker's still going to see that kick line, and when he lines up and everything, all the same. He doesn't see it at a different angle. So it really does not make sense to have that in the game. The menu. Stop changing the position of the menu selections. I'm tired of every now and then I end up in MUT. The beginning of it. Because then I have to back out of it. And it's a waste of time. Just keep MUT wherever it is on that menu bar and stop moving it around, forcing gamers into that. It gets suspect. It makes me think you're somehow gaining something from the number of clicks you get. The play schedule. Why is a play schedule hard to keep up with? The last I saw it, it was at week 10. This was around the Super Bowl. Now, I haven't been back in it recently, but it was at week 10. So what happened to 11 through 17? And why can't we use custom playbooks when we're following that team schedule? Why are we forced to use that team playbook? It's not that hard to do, to add that feature in there to allow you to use that custom playbook. And finally, for each game in the second half, we set offense and defense emphasis. I don't mind a timer, but there needs to be a back button in case you choose a wrong one or was caught off guard while trying to skip the halftime. And so if I do that, I can back into that screen, but keep the timer going for it. So if I have 10 seconds and I had made a mistake and pressed the button or whatever, I back in there, then that's all I got. It's 10 more seconds to make the right selection, and then it counts down and it goes to the next one. Fine, I don't have a problem with that. But give me that option to back out of that, because too many times I've hit the button and then I find myself on the other settings, and I didn't want the first one that was selected. Halftime. Why is it so hard to show relevant plays from the first half of the game and provide some type of summary? And that which reminds me, highlights. Still, you have a problem providing meaningful highlights. Every score should be a highlight that you can replay. Every score. I think every turnover as well should be the same. If there are block kicks and things of that nature, those are highlights. How do you not save those plays? And finally, EA should provide a roster update until the release of the next version. Now, I know the problem with that could be with rookies. You don't have to do the rookies until the next version comes out, because I'm guessing there's no type of contractual agreement or anything like that, and you would be using their name without their permission and all that. But you could do the free agency changes all the way up to that point. I don't see why you can't do that up until that point, and then by the time the person gets the game, they'll have some type of idea as to what they get. Now, I do it manually, but I just think that EA should either provide that roster update or make it an off-season change where you don't have to go through any manipulations and things of that nature. It's just a straight up move. If somebody's traded somebody, then you can do the trade. But you don't have to worry about it being accepted or anything. It's almost like just swapping one for the other. If somebody picked up someone from free agency and it wasn't a trade, then they just swapped to that team, and it was via no trade. It really shouldn't be difficult to do. But in the end, this game, for me, yet again, has been a failure, as you can see. And I really don't expect any more from Madden 24. The only thing I expect is another marketing ploy like they did with FieldSense. And if you look at some of my videos and some that's coming out, you'll see that it's fake. Not entirely, but because they exaggerate everything they put out, it becomes a problem when people can manipulate things or when certain things work unrealistically. It's supposed to be a simulator, and I don't see simulation in it. Once it goes beyond that, then it's a no good feature. So Madden 24 will be all about the hype of what is the next marketing ploy, and what will the content creators rush to their blogs to read and rush back out to put out a video for everybody to see and be first out, so to speak. Don't fall for it again. That's all I can say.